So, first of all, I wanted to say thank you to everyone who left a comment on my last videos. I was actually really surprised about it. I did not expect to get like so much response from people out there who could like really resonate with how I was feeling at that kind of time. And specifically then I was like really annoyed. So that's why probably this video felt a bit more like I'm desperate and I have no idea what I'm going to do with my life. But it was just like really frustrating in that moment and I just wanted to get it out. And I was really surprised to see how many people watched the video and actually left a comment, and also how much you wrote and like how many thoughtful things. And I actually looked some of these things up to see if they would help in my kind of situation. So thank you very much for everyone who left a comment. And what I also found was that a lot of people who replied who felt in that kind of situation were around their teenage years to early 20s, like 23-ish. So I thought maybe I should do a video specifically in that kind of age bracket to give you maybe a bit of a kind of, if you can say, support. I mean, there are a lot of things that kind of influence your life and how everything is like working out for you. So in order for me to actually give you a specific advice on what you could do or would help or get a better understanding, I obviously would need to have like an extra conversation with you to actually get the input so that I can then react to that kind of input. But what I've heard is that what I had that day is how you feel basically every day. So yeah, I thought it would be kind of nice to just like have a bit of a discussion about that. So what I found is that a lot of you in that age bracket, and obviously some people older or my age or whatever, feel still that kind of way. And the first thing I wanted to say is don't feel like life is not going to get better or that every day is going to be awful and shit and whatever. That's not the case. It is just that a lot of the things are very frustrating, and it feels a bit like, it can feel very much like it is absolutely hopeless and you don't know what you should do and everybody is against you. And let's be real, I mean, most of the time everybody is against you because you're so different, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. And that is something that I actually had to like find out for myself. For you people out there who now are like watching this video, you are actually in a very lucky position that you are growing up in a generation where there is something like YouTube or any other social kind of media that you're using that is not toxic, I want to say, because the internet is also a very huge curse on itself. But for these things, if you are like really need to find something that helps you to understand yourself, then this is a really good thing. So yeah, in that kind of regard, you're kind of lucky because you can already start to understand things, to figure out things about yourself, where you want to go. And that is also something that you should actually really be happy about, because the phase you're probably going through right now is what I call the INTP's midlife crisis. Because differently than other people, the majority of like, I don't want to say normal people, but of basically everybody else that is not very much in tune with their thinking or is like doing a lot of thinking, they just go through their life, do all the things that are expected from them or like what society in a way expects from them, and then they wake up one morning and realize, well, that's shit and I actually did not want all of that. I now wasted basically half of my life. What should I do? And then they, get a divorce, get a 20-year-old girlfriend and start like, doing all that kind of crap. And they are generally, as you figured, around their 50s when they have their midlife crisis, because, midlife crisis. But what's basically different to them with us is that we generally have that kind of midlife crisis really early on, because we do a lot more thinking and we do a lot more realization and we are a bit more self-aware, which is a curse sometimes as well, but also a blessing in these things. Because if you already have your kind of midlife crisis already at the beginning of your 20s, you can do all the stuff, the crazy things like, I don't know, try to be a rock star or travel the world or whatever you want to do, or what most of people do when they are 50. You can already do it now. You can already try to figure out who you are and try to see where you want to go with your life, because you're still at the beginning of it. You still have so much time to actually figure it out. But if you're 50, then basically half of your life is done, and you are going into an area of your life where you're physically also not really able to do a lot of the things anymore, because let's be honest, you are not going to get younger. So what everybody is saying about, oh, I'm going to work a lot and, career and all of that kind of stuff. And when I'm retiring, I will do all the things. I'm going to see the world and I will do everything, what I've been dreaming about when I was younger. That's stupid. That's probably the most stupidest thing that you can do, because when you're retiring, let's be honest, right now, the average retiring age is around 65. Until we actually, all of us, reach that kind of age, I personally don't think that there is going to be retiring ages anymore, because people are already the people who actually don't work are now thinking, Mel, maybe you should decide to put the retiring age up to 67, which is yeah, so if you have then worked all your life until you're retiring, by that point you are basically done for. So you're not going to do a lot of traveling anymore, because you're technically tired most of the time. Depending on what job you did, you're physically not able to actually do that anymore. And, it's not everybody is in a lucky position where they actually have enough money in their retirement to do all of these things. Unfortunately, nowadays, it is actually the opposite. A lot of people who are retiring are living at the absolute minimum. They're actually trying to survive in a way, which is really sad, because they have worked their whole life and that's what they get in the end. So if you are now in that kind of age bracket and you're questioning everything and you have no idea what you should do with your life, be happy in a way that you have that now and not when you're 50 and basically can't really do a lot about it anymore. So, in that kind of situation, because I had the same thing, some people of you said, okay, you're studying right now, but you actually don't really want to do it. You're studying something that you're not really interested in. You're probably going to change, or you actually quit altogether and were like, okay, no, that's absolute shit. That's nothing bad. You probably just feel that it is something bad because that's what is society telling you, because everybody is getting degrees and everybody is doing it in a certain time frame, and you need to have done it in 3 years, and it needs to be done right after school, before you actually do work, and you have to, time's ticking, especially if you're female, you have to consider that you get married and they get children, especially, the best would be if you get all of that done when you're 20, get a degree, have children, and be married when you're 20, basically, which is come on, people, that's not impossible. So don't feel bad if you're actually thinking about it, because, as I already said, life goes on. So if you should decide today, well, right now studying is not for me, maybe just leave it for now. Do a couple of years just working, get a job, do the grinding, do in that kind of area, even if you hop from one job to the other job, it's not wasted time at the end of the day, because even if you do multiple jobs, for example, I'm someone who's like, I'm working in a job, and after 2 years, I'm already feeling like I need something new, I need something different, because this job is absolutely not giving me anything. So I actually have quite a lot of job changes in my life. But I always learn something, and you always adapt to something new. You meet new people, especially as an INTP, where you're like pretty quickly fed up with people around you. You can get basically like some kind of fresh start and get new input and find out something new, see if that is something for you. Maybe it's nothing for you, but then you have at least tried it. And if you then, after, I don't know, 5 years or 6 years after, then you get to the point where it's like, oh my God, this is absolute shit, I've wasted my life, I should have gotten a degree. You know what? You still can get a degree, because by then you're, what, maybe 27, okay, maybe 28, maybe even 30. Hell, even some people, when I did my degree, we had people in our course that were 72. And they decided for themselves, okay, they just did it because they wanted to learn something. And they were like, okay, maybe I should get a degree. It would be nice. So don't feel like, if you are at the beginning of your 20s and you decide, okay, studying right now is not for me, then just don't do it. Just work like every normal person as well. It's not like, you're not possible to get a job if you don't have a degree. There are still hundreds of jobs out there where you can get money, where you just can, get out of this kind of feeling of, oh, school, you have to learn, you have to get do exams and all of that kind of shit. So sometimes it's really good if you just get a bit of a distance. If you can just okay, I've done now, I don't know, 10 years of school and it's done. I need a of distance to it. And then you can reevaluate everything. You can it's good if you get different input, if you can actually go out in the real world and work and see, okay, maybe I'm just a person who's more, I like to just work. I don't need the whole kind of academic stuff or a degree. Then that's fine as well. But if you later on should still, get the feeling, oh, maybe I'm missing out on something, you still can get a degree. And in all honesty, sometimes it's actually better, because then you have more life experience and you know a bit more about yourself. You understand more, okay, where I want to go, where lie my interests, and then you can actually decide on your degree, because that is actually another thing a lot of you have been telling, that you're actually doing something in that kind of regard that you don't really want to do. And I understand that, because I actually started to study something which had my interest, but also went with something I had absolutely no inclination to. But at that time, I was like, okay, I don't want to just do this because, I'm not going to earn any money with it. So let's go with something, that combines both of it. Obviously, I failed in it because I hated it. I hated the people I was studying with. I hated the tutors. I just hated the whole environment, because it was kind of elitaire, because they actually just took 20 people in per year for that kind of degree. So there were people who basically, where mommy and papi did everything for them. They never actually had to do anything in their life. And so they had no hardships, no real world experience, nothing. And the tutors themselves were in that kind of same framework. So if you have heard about elite universities, it's not for us, in all honesty. If you have ever thought about, okay, going to an elite university, the reality is it's not really for our personality. So I hated it. I didn't finish it for obvious reasons. So I then did actually go and just worked. I mean, I'm someone who I've always worked. I also worked when I still went to school. So for me, it it was nothing like specific, but I just left the whole school stuff behind and just concentrated on work. And after a couple of years, I was like, well, I should try it again. The first time around, I was pretty sure I'm never going to university again. I will never get a degree. It's the worst. I hate it. But then after just working, for me, it was just a pride thing. And it was also like, I wanted to go back into learning. So I was like, okay, we're doing it again, but this time we're going to study something that I just had an interest in and that might probably not secure a job for me. But I have studied at least something that I have an interest in and don't feel like I'm constantly wasting time and feel unhappy, and it's just like the worst. So that's why I then decided to study something that I had an interest in, rather than, you know, doing something that might have been like good looking. But yeah, so for you, if you find that you are now in a situation where it's like, oh, I'm studying something I absolutely hate, well, you have to make a decision. You have to decide either to stick with it, but then you have to suck it up and go on with it and don't complain about it. So you have to decide for yourself if what you are studying right now is something that you can see yourself in doing the actual job in. I don't know if it's, I mean, nowadays a lot of it's like engineering and these kind of things. If you hate doing that, maybe you shouldn't be doing it, because I'm always thinking, for me, it's like, well, I have to do work in this area for the next 30, 40 years. Is that actually something that I want to do? I mean, realistically, nowadays, nobody is working 30, 40 years in one job anymore. But, you know, you get the idea. That's basically how, you know, we process things. We have to at least have some kind of variable that's fixed. So in that kind of sense, it's the time frame you're working. Can I imagine working in that kind of job for the next 30, 40 years? If the answer is no, maybe consider something else. And with that, again, if you should decide to study something that is like unconventional or more like artistic, like, I don't know, fashion design, painting, any artistic kind of way, or if you're all into architecture, because let's be honest, architecture it's not easy to actually make a living out of it. So any of these kind of jobs, or like anything arts related, like languages, so all of these areas, if you wanted to go in these areas, you should do it. In all honesty, you should do it. Obviously, if you have to pay a shit ton of money for study fees, that might can be a hindrance. But if you study something in that kind of field, nowadays you can actually do so much with it. And if I had actually the talent for any of these things, like graphic design, like, you know, sewing, fashion design, all of these kind of things, if I actually had an inclination to it, I probably would do it, because it is so easy to make money out of it outside of the conventional ways. You can open up your Etsy shop, you can do YouTube videos, you can blogs, anything you want to do, it is possible nowadays. A friend of mine actually, she actually does not have a degree. That's the other thing. So what she basically did, we worked together, and she suddenly decided to go vegan, which is not really something I'm interested in, but for her it was important. So she wanted to go vegan. She like got really into it, you know, but not in this kind of over the top weird way, but more like in a normal, okay, I want to do it properly. So she did her research and did like develop her own recipes and all of that. And what she actually had is she's a photographer. So that was what she did before. And then she decided, okay, that's nothing for me. So she moved, did something else, and then we worked together. And that's when she realized, oh, I want to do something, you know, vegan. And over time, she started to actually have a blog where she then would like post her recipes, and then she started to like go on Facebook and in groups and all of that, and like posting her pictures with all the recipes and like the foods she did and the dishes and everything. And people were starting to like really recognize it and be like, oh my god, that's amazing. And what happened now is that basically she was like on TV. I can't remember if it was BBC or ITV, but one of these kind of cooking shows. And now she's like writing her own recipe book. And you know, it's not like an impossibility nowadays anymore. There are so many outlets that if you are more creatively inclined or want to do something in that kind of area, you can actually do that. So you don't need to feel pressured into doing something that's boring. Like, I know all of you mathematicians out there and people who love engineering or coding or all of that kind of stuff. I'm not saying that, you know, but it's not for everyone. Not everyone is inclined into these kind of areas and enjoy these kind of areas. So if you are someone who is the opposite of that and enjoys more the creative field or wants to do like films, like, I don't know, voiceovers, everything in that, it is possible. It's not an impossibility nowadays. It's just a question of focusing on it and being like, okay, I want to do that. And if that should not work out, you still will be able to find a job. It is not as if you're like unable to find a job. You will always find a job, especially if you should decide to do like a degree in something arts related. If you have a degree in the end of the day, you still can do something else. So it is not wasted. And if you should not decide to do a degree, as I already said, there are so many possibilities out there that you can get by without having a degree. And let's be honest, as an INTP, at some point you will probably realize that you don't need all of these materialistic kind of things. For me, it took a bit longer, probably because I never really had a lot of material stuff when I was younger. So for me, it was a bit more like when I grew older and actually had now the financial means to afford things, I was like, okay, you know, I need that. It gave me a bit of, I don't want to say reassurance, but a feeling of having something accomplished in a way. But now the more I have thought about it and how I feel about that and things and what I actually want with my life and where I want to go, I realized, well, these things are actually not what I need anymore. I'm not saying that I never needed it, but where I'm right now, I don't feel like that I need it anymore. So my focus now is actually going in a different kind of direction. And that might be something where you will get in your life at some point where you realize, yes, I do need a job, because let's be real, everybody needs a job. You can't survive in this world without a job. And also, you are kind of wasting space on this planet if you're not actually having a job, because, you know, you're basically living on somebody else's money. So come on, yeah, get a job, do your deeds, like every other person is doing. But you probably will get to a point where you realize that that's not something of such a big importance anymore. Because the thing is, we're getting so bombarded by a lot of things like marketing and especially social media. That's another topic in on itself. And in all honesty, I think if you are until 18, people shouldn't be able to go on social media at all, and they shouldn't have any access to it, because it's the devil incarnated, basically. But we are basically so bombarded with everything, and it's telling us, okay, you need that to actually show who you are. The reality of it is, no, actually you don't need it. You actually need to have just a safe space where you can go, where you like secure, where it's dry, where you feel like, okay, nothing is going to happen here. So that's basically the main thing we need. And then obviously we need groceries and, but all the other kind of shit you don't really need in reality. Let's be honest with it. So if you're right now still thinking, oh my God, I need to have a job where I earn thousands and thousands and thousands. No, you don't. You just need to have a job that is going to cover the costs of your place you are living, and obviously groceries, and then obviously public transport. If you are someone who's like going out with friends a lot, then maybe you should, have some pounds for that as well. But if you're an INTP, I'm assuming that's not really your first thing you're thinking about, to go out and have a drink at the pub with hundreds of other people. But so don't feel so much pressure. It is like, there are probably days, and that's going to be probably for the rest of your life, because that's something that's just us, because we can't shut up our brain. It's constantly working, it's constantly overthinking things, which is the worst, but that's what it is doing. So you will definitely have days where everything just feels like the world is against you. But there are just days. They will go by, you will have thought about it, you will have had a pretty nice sleep about it, and then you will probably see everything a bit more clearer. But don't feel like if you decide against something now that you can't change it later on, because if you're on that kind of age bracket, you still can change a lot. And that's, as I said, the good thing about having a midlife crisis already so early on. I mean, even if you're older, you still have time to change things, but at some point it gets kind of difficult to change things. But if you are still just at the beginning, basically, and just start to have the realization, well, that's shit, I have no idea what I should do with my life, I should be at some point right now, I should have figured everything out. No, you don't really need to have anything figured out when you're 20, because that's the time when you start to figure out. 20 to 30 is the time when you will figure out what you like, what you dislike, where you want to go, where you definitely don't want to go. And don't feel like that you need to figure it out by 20, because let's be real, before that you're still in that kind of bubble, in this kind of family security bubble, where you can fall back and everything's peachy in a way, depending on how you grew up and all of that. But that's how it generally is. And then 20 to 30 is basically the range where you then start to develop yourself and figure yourself out, where you are like deciding, okay, where do I want to go? Do I want to focus on career? Do I want to focus on family? Do I want to have both? Do I want to have nothing of them? That's absolutely possible as well. If you decide, okay, I'm not interested in career, but I'm also not interested in family and all of that. That's an absolute valid decision that you can have. But probably 2030, that's where you're going to make a lot of things. And what I can just say is use the time. Use the time to do a lot of the things, even if people might think, okay, that's absolutely stupid, why are you doing that? Because if you don't do it, you will definitely regret it. So if there are things like, I don't know, you want to go to a martial arts class, do it. Even if you just go to the martial arts class once and then realize, well, it's actually not how I expected it to be, it doesn't matter. You have tried it and you saw, okay, it's not for me, or you will realize, well, that's actually amazing. I'm going to do that. And it's the same for if you want to start to learn a music instrument, or if you think, okay, maybe, I really would like to learn how to draw or to paint, or if you want to learn coding or machine design or artificial intelligence or whatever area it is you have an interest in, try it at least once. Or if it's singing, or if you want to like shoot a movie or write a book or whatever, just do it. Okay, that's now very Shia LaBeouf and it's annoying me. Um, but you should try it. You should definitely try it and see if it is actually something that you are interested in, or if it is something that you just have like a very high imaginative like inclination to, but in reality it's actually not what you expected it to be, or it actually is. Because let's be real, if we see a lot of things, we have a certain imagination about it, how it's going to be, and how awesome or awful we are going to be at it, until we actually have tried it. So try it. Use the time. And if you're someone who would like to travel, I can just give you the advice: do that. Start with long haul travels. Don't do the whole I'm going to leave it until later on or when I'm old or whatever. Do it now when you're still young and you're physically able to do that. Because long haul flights are very physically demanding. If you are 67 or 70, a 12-hour flight might not be so great anymore. So maybe you should do that when you're younger and actually can deal with it. So I just can give you advice: if you want to do traveling, long haul flights first. So if you're living in America, do the whole shebang about like Europe, I don't know, Russia, all of that, very fast stuff. And then when you're getting older, do the more close kind of things like Canada, Latin America, all of that, because it is closer and it's not so demanding to get there. And the same as if you are from Europe, you should do all the long haul things. You should do Asia, America, North, South America, whatever it is, Australia, New Zealand, all of these kind of things. Do them earlier and then leave all the kind of Europe stuff like Italy and France and Paris and whatnot to later on, when it's a lot, when you can just go take the train or the car and drive from one country to the other one. Unless obviously it is a country where you definitely want to go. You are so in love with France or Belgium or Sweden, then obviously go there. But if you are someone who is a bit more like, I want to travel in general, do the long haul flights first and then everything else that is closer by when you're getting older. Makes sense to me. So yeah, that's basically so far it. I mean, that's the thing if you don't really have a conversation with someone, because I'm just like blabbering out, but I don't really get an input, so I can't really respond. So I have to wait basically for your comments again. But yeah, so just to get it out there again, don't worry about it. Don't worry about feeling like, okay, the world is ending. I don't want to study that. I want to do something different or whatnot. Life goes on. It will go on. There will always be something, you will always find something to keep you afloat, and don't worry about it. And if you have issues, you should talk to someone about it, because that helps a lot. So yeah, that's it basically. I hope it helped you a bit, or maybe you got some ideas or something that you can tell me about, or any thoughts would be nice. So yes, that's it then. Thank you very much and